The World Bank says reducing dependence on China is probably good for everyone. That's the organization's present comments on the issue. Shipping is grinding to a halt on Chinese highways. Lockdown protocols have left truckers trapped in their vehicles, and the backup is now hitting supply chains. That's as foreign money flees China at breakneck speed, driven by investor fears. And in space, China and Russia are trying to counter the U.S. A defense intelligence officer explains why. And for those watching our full episode, an American company sells half its stake in Chinese e-commerce giant Alibaba, a move pushed through by Warren Buffett's longtime business partner. And a loophole in Canada allows citizens to get illegal organ transplants from China, but a group of lawmakers is trying to close it. Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Before we start, a quick thank you to today's sponsor, Shenyang Performing Arts. Have you ever wondered what China was like before the Communist Party took over in 1949? This show depicts just that. Shenyang showcases China's rich cultural heritage and what the regime destroyed, which is why the performance is banned in China. Captivating and uplifting, Shenyang brings to life the legendary heroes of old, portraying the spirituality and deep wisdom present in ancient Chinese tradition. Get your tickets today at shenyang.show/China-in-Focus. Enter the code CNINFOCUS with no spaces to waive ticket fees. Countries around the world are working to diversify their supply chains and reduce their dependence on China. World Bank President David Malpass commented on Tuesday, saying this is probably good for everyone.
I think the world is working to reduce the dependency on supply chains from China, and that diversification is probably good for everyone.
He added that China also needs to be part of a value system shared by other countries.
The world needs China to be a good producer and a consumer and a part of the value system that was described. I don't know that will happen.
China is the world's second largest economy after the U.S. Malpass said he expects China to become the world's biggest economy, although China suffered some major setbacks in various areas. Either way, the country plays a major role as both a consumer and producer of goods. China is a shareholder of the World Bank, but also a borrower. The World Bank plans to aid China through 2025. Among those plans are low-interest loans to China, totaling $1 to $1.5 billion every year. The U.S. objected when the World Bank first adopted the plan in 2019, citing Beijing's human rights violations. According to the World Bank, China is still a developing country, meaning it can get benefits earmarked for developing countries, both in trade and other areas. On the other hand, the U.S. excluded China from its own list of developing countries in 2020 under the Trump administration. With areas of China still under lockdown, many goods are stuck inside the country, and that could become a big problem for the global supply chain. That's according to IMA Asia's Managing Director, Richard Martin. IMA Asia is a peer group forum for Asia-based CEOs and other executives. Martin says many products made around the globe contain parts from China, adding that the world is about to see a logistics snarl that'll dwarf any slowdowns in 2020. Martin made the comments while speaking with CNBC Tuesday. And during that interview, he noted that China accounts for 20% of global demand, but that its role in supply chains is much bigger. For weeks, China has been battling rising outbreaks of the CCP virus, which causes COVID-19. The chief economist from financial services company Nomura Holdings gave more details. Referring to his company's survey of the situation, he explained China's lockdowns cover around 40% of its GDP. Of the region's lockdown, Shanghai is taking the brunt, saddled with strict closure orders from authorities. Other areas struggling under that pressure include the northern province of Jilin and southern Guangzhou. Both areas are hubs for factories and other manufacturing. China has adopted a strict zero COVID-19 policy since the start of the pandemic. It seeks to completely eliminate the virus from China, rather than learning to control and live with it in low numbers, like most other nations. To achieve that goal, Chinese authorities have shuttered factories and businesses, while forcing residents to stay at home for weeks or even months at a time. IMA Asia's Martin described it as quite unlikely that Xi Jinping will back off the policy. He says that's because the strategy has virtually become a hallmark of the current administration. Across China, miles of 18-wheelers and other trucks are lined up along highways, with the truck's doors and windows sealed shut. Some of those vehicles with truckers locked inside. As that's going on, shipping and delivery has ground to a halt. Let's take a closer look.
Fully loaded trucks stretch for miles, stuck in their tracks. Nearly a dozen Chinese provinces have ordered highway closures as a means to combat rising virus spread. But those orders have left truck drivers in a tough situation. Some say they made long-distance drives en route to their destinations, but once they got there, they weren't allowed to get off the highway. Others were even asked to turn around and go back where they came from, or were put in quarantine. Videos circulating online reveal more about what's going on. One of those videos was shared Sunday to an official account run by the local government of Zhejiang province. It zooms in on one truck driver from Shanghai and how his trip was brought to a sudden halt. Shanghai is currently battling a rising surge of infections. Making contact with people coming from Shanghai has been deemed highly risky and likely to result in getting sick. Because of it, anyone coming from the megacity is subject to strict isolation measures, including not being allowed to get out of their trucks.
It's been half a month and I haven't gotten out of the truck. No way to change clothes, nothing to eat but only some instant noodles. I got a box of noodles, now only a few packs left.
Many of the impacted truckers face another problem, the fact that they've been physically sealed inside their cabins. That's including the truckers carrying aid shipments. On top of that, many have their contact tracing apps checked regularly and are required to get tested for COVID-19.
我不管你是从哪儿来的，上哪儿去，下来以后先高封条给你招呼。每天面临的起早贪黑咱们就不说了，看不完的行程码，做不完的核酸报告，干啥呀？我们是来送物资的，我们是来救援的，我们不是土匪，我们更不是路霸。
And there's more. Some of these truckers have been tasked with delivering aid supplies to Shanghai. But after unloading these goods, health workers sealed the trucks, and truckers were ordered to isolate in their vehicles. One trucker from Hebei province questioned the measures. He says getting locked inside should only be for those who break laws.
I want to ask, what laws do we truckers break? What are we guilty of? Why should you seal us inside? Did the virus come from us truck drivers?
Data shows that China has about 20 million truckers, responsible for transporting about 80% of the country's goods. So far, the strict policies on truckers have paralyzed shipping logistics and contributed to skyrocketing prices.
Beijing is still holding strong to its zero COVID-19 policy, despite the recent hardship the strategy has posed in several cities. During a press conference Tuesday, a Chinese foreign ministry spokesperson insisted the protocols are scientific, consistent with the reality of China's situation and the World Health Organization's guiding principles. He said the restrictions have effectively protected the life and health of Chinese and foreign nationals living in China and made important contributions to the global fight against the pandemic, adding that all control measures come at a price. The remarks came as a response to the European Union Chamber of Commerce in China. The association sent a letter to Chinese Vice Premier Hu Chunhua dated Friday, detailing how lockdowns have caused significant disruptions for many companies. The letter suggested Omicron is posing new challenges that seemingly cannot be overcome by applying the old toolkit. The letter also mentioned that the costs of implementing the policy are rapidly mounting and noted the practice is eroding foreign investors' confidence in the Chinese market. At the same time, foreign money is fleeing China at a never-before-seen rate. The trend began with Russia's invasion of Ukraine. According to financial newspaper Nikkei Asia, foreign investors sold more than $6 billion in Chinese stocks and bonds in the first 3 months of this year, reaching one of the highest figures ever recorded. Some experts say it's partly due to investors' concerns that if Beijing helps Moscow, the U.S. will sanction Chinese companies too. But even before that, foreign investors were already suffering, largely because of Beijing's clampdown on major Chinese companies across various sectors in recent years. That's on top of Washington's threat to delist Chinese companies from the U.S. market. According to U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, the Chinese Communist Party continues to commit genocide and crimes against humanity against the Uyghur ethnic group. Those remarks coincide with the release of an annual report about human rights in various countries. Kevin Hogan from NTD News Today has more.
The Chinese government continues to commit genocide and crimes against humanity in Xinjiang against predominantly Muslim Uyghurs, among other minority groups.
Blinken made this statement as part of a briefing marking the release of the newest edition of an annual report. It's called the Country Reports on Human Rights Practices. The State Department publishes it to cover human rights issues. It includes details on 198 countries across the world. Blinken asserts that there is a recession of democracy happening in the world, and he said what the Chinese regime is doing is a key example of growing authoritarianism. That is what Blinken calls its mass campaign of repression and genocide against the Uyghurs. The report also described the CCP as an authoritarian state, and it said religious and ethnic minorities are still being persecuted in mainland China and other territories that the regime occupies. And speaking of China, a new report outlines attempts to undercut U.S. space efforts. The Defense Intelligence Agency published the report. It describes how China and Russia would try to counter the advantage the U.S. has in space. A defense intelligence officer explains why.
Russia and China, our primary strategic competitors, are taking steps to undercut the United States and our allies in the space domain. Both nations view space as a requirement for winning modern wars, especially against Western nations, and look to prove themselves as world leaders.
A defense intelligence analyst also points to the two countries' combined assets in space. He said they've grown about 70% in only 2 years. He outlines their ambitions.
Both nations seek to broaden their space exploration initiatives, together and individually, with plans to explore the Moon and Mars during the next 30 years. And if successful, these efforts will likely lead to attempts by Beijing and Moscow to exploit the Moon's natural resources.
What's more, he said that Moscow is now developing a missile that is able to destroy satellites and space vehicles.
That's all for today's China in Focus on YouTube. We are now sharing a shortened version of our program on YouTube. Full episodes can be watched on our partner platform, Epoch TV. Please click the link down below. Thanks for watching China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Catch us tomorrow. We'll have a special report about the currency war. No more dollar dominance? Is the U.S. at risk of losing its status as the world's reserve currency? And how does the Chinese regime play into all this? In this special report, we look at the currency wars playing out on the world stage, what that means for Americans, and how it stands to impact your bank account.
Every once in a while, something comes along so masterful, it leaves you in awe. So inspiring, it changes your life. So beautiful, you wish it would never end. When that happens, it's something not to be missed. Shen Yun, an all-new production every year.
The performance was enchanting.
I feel better about the world. I feel uplifted.
It touches you. It really does.
The expertise of the dancers was really, really strong.
To know that it was live music was really fantastic.
We didn't want to miss this.
Make sure you see it.
Have to come. Life-changing.